All right, good morning, everyone. It is 8:30 and I will bring to order our June 28th, 2022 meeting to order. We have an agenda before us. Additions or deletions? Yes, Ms. Vanderkool.
Administration has some emergent business to add to the agenda today because of time constraints, because our next meeting is until July 20-something. The first one would be virtual meeting with Minister Shandro to discuss policing services, 7.3.
Okay, so we would put that under 7.3.
And 7.4, Alberta Association of Chiefs of Police Awards.
7.4. Okay. Are there any other additions or deletions to the agenda? Councillor Christie.
If not, I'll move the agenda as amended.
Okay, we have a motion to move the agenda as amended. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. We've pre-circulated the minutes of the June 14th regular council meeting. Are there any errors, omissions, concerns? Deputy Reeve King.
So I'll make the motion to accept the council minutes from the June 14th, 2022 meeting as presented.
All right, thank you. We have a motion to accept the minutes as presented. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay, our first agenda item, 4.1, 2022 capital equipment purchasing. Welcome, Mr. Zier. Looking sharp and spiffy today. As usual.
Good morning. Thank you for that, Reeve.
Anytime you're ready,
Council.
Mike.
Nice to see you. What you see before you is agenda item 4.1, which is the 2022 capital equipment purchasing. So included in your package there is the policy 16.4, which is the capital equipment replacement plan line item over expenditure process. So basically, whenever we put forward a purchase item in the capital equipment plan, we have a little bit of wiggle room in there up to 15%, 15% up to 30,000 on individual line item purchase. As you see here, we have exceeded that in 3 of our capital equipment replacements that we're looking at this year. So this resolution or this RFD is to ask for an additional 135,000 for the purchase of these 3 pieces of equipment from the capital equipment reserve. So these pieces of equipment are a motor grader and 2 tandem axle gravel trucks. We put out for bid. We use the RMA canoe purchasing for the grader. It came back, we had a budgeted amount of 570,000. It came back at just shy of 630,000. And the 2 tandem trucks, we received back a quote of 228,000 with which exceeds our budgeted line item of 195,000 per. So the details are in the proposal there, and I'm able to answer any questions if council has.
Council have any questions for Mr. Zier? Okay, Councillor Christie.
I guess my question would be, these would be tendered, so there'd be several dealers that are fighting for the sale or not?
Sorry.
These items have been tendered to different companies or?
These have, so we did put out a public tender for the trucks. We use the canoe purchasing for the graders, and we get our preferred pricing on that. The trucks we put out for bid and only received 1 bid back, which is through International, which did meet our specs, although above the quoted price. We actually went out and took a look at these vehicles, did an inspection on them to make sure they met our standards. We contacted the other companies to see what the reasoning behind not receiving any bids from others, and they basically said that they weren't able to meet any of our timelines. These ones, if we're lucky, we can get them at the end of this year, but it's likely going to be a Q1 of 2023. The other ones wouldn't even commit to this time next year. So we're comfortable with these trucks, and the value is similar to what we see in other bids that would come in.
Thank you.
Councillor Penner.
That was my question too, whether we're going to be able to get them, but you answered that. A question I had from a ratepayer is, how long do we like to keep our equipment? How old are the two trucks we're replacing and the grader?
Yeah, so I did just bring some research on them. We have, the grader is over 10,500, or just under 10,500 hours, which is exceeding what our comfortable lifespan is for graders. Usually around the 10,000, major failures start to happen. I see that in lots of the electrical as well as the transmission, which actually for this John Deere is starting to show real signs of wear in the transmission, some slipping, that sort of thing. So we are eliminating that before we have a fairly expensive replacement or repair on that, which we have had to do on its sister machine a couple of years ago. The trucks are purchased in 2012 and 2011. They have over 360,000 kilometers on each, and the Kenworth is the box is nearing the end of its lifespan. It's rusting through. Lots of diagnostic problems with the electrical, as well as the Freightliner. Similar things. We've had 29 unscheduled work orders on that one in the last 12 months. So it is definitely on its way out. So.
You're not doing much of a job for the resale of these things right now, you know that.
I understand that, yes. Being honest, though.
The grader, we've got extended warranty on, I assume?
We do. We have a typical warranty up to 7,500 with that, so we do get the extended warranty on that. Yep.
Okay. It's council's wishes. Yes, go ahead, Councillor McGee.
I'd like to move that we approve a draw of $135,000 from the Capital Equipment Replacement Reserve to fund capital equipment plan purchases for which the quotes were higher than originally budgeted.
Okay, thank you. Should maybe have a motion to bring the Canadian dollar up in value too. That would help immensely. All right, well, we have a motion before us to approve an additional draw of $135,000. Is there any discussion to that motion? Okay, not seeing any, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. So what do we got? Another 6-8 months and we get these?
Yeah, if we're lucky, yes.
If we're lucky. All right, thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Reeve?
Yes.
I'd like to ask another question, sorry, just while you're in the chair. I had a ratepayer ask about the Hiller stockpile. That week it was very wet. Are we doing it again or not till the fall now on that stockpile?
Through the chair, that we haven't even decided on if we are going to do another gravel blitz with that sign. Yeah, it's definitely, we had a couple applicants with the Hillier pile, which we did move into the Three Hills offloading there because we just couldn't get into that Hillier pile. So we'll definitely look at bringing this back in the fall if the interest level is there. As you see in the council report, there wasn't a lot of interest with these gravel blitzes this time, so we'll gauge it to see what extent we go to next time.
For sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Zier. Our next agenda item, 5.3.1, Rcmp Reporting. Welcome, Ms. Grosfield, and anytime you are ready.
Good morning, Council. I bring to you lots of RFDs today. So the first one today is the RCMP Quarterly Report and the Kneehill County Public Safety Report. So we do have 5 RCMP detachments serving us, and so this is just a summary of their quarterly reports, January, February, and March. We'll likely see the next quarterly report sooner rather than 3 months past. Again, our priorities are rural crime prevention, community safety through programs and workshops, and presence in rural communities, and then road safety and working with our Kneehill County CPOs. All of their reports do reflect those community priorities, and they are all attached. So as part of they're accountable to the community, Rcmp are reporting on the statistics for those specific priorities. And you'll see in there that Rcmp are moving to the body-worn cameras. So they've included information in there, as well as they have a new crime app that they've rolled out. So we'll see if we can share that on our social media a little bit more, because it is quite good. Kneehill County enforcement stats are seen there. So again, these are January 1 to March 31st. This is a time where we do quite a bit of our training as well. And you'll see that 27 warnings were issued, 5 tickets. This was our big emergency management events were held and training. We had some bylaw calls and internal calls. 17 bylaw calls for the other municipalities. Again, we do have contracts with Aacp, Carbon, Linden, Trochu, and Three Hills to do bylaw enforcement in their municipalities. There were over 20 school visits. The speed trailer is now up and running, fixed again, and we're circulating that through different communities in Kneehill County. School resource program, so this was kind of part of a request from a counselor that we kind of check into some unattended fires, and it led to a creation of a party plan guide that we've been working with Alberta Addictions in school presentations. And the Aacp contract has changed, so we no longer have dedicated weekly patrols. We were 3 hours a week in Aacp, was quite a bit. To patrol. So we've just changed that to an on-call basis only. So it's not mandated patrols, only kind of when they call us, just like the other municipalities. And then we've also included the Roadbound Report. So this is patrols conducted from March 16th to May 16th. And just kind of as there was 9 road ban exemption requests that were received and 7 permits were issued, totaling approximately 80 loads. So that was information that we got from transportation. So if you have any questions, you can talk more with him on that. Yeah, and then there's the patrols that were conducted. And I think that's about it. If council has any questions.
Councillor Penner.
I do have a question about that graph, patrols conducted there or whatever. It was very hard to understand what it meant there, like under the speed limit, and like what does all that mean? Sorry, they just
vehicles that we've
okay.
On
they weren't
those
pulled
roads.
over. They just
yeah, just vehicles that they saw. So if they were they would pull over and just count how many vehicles throughout that entire time. So anytime they did a patrol, they would mark down how many vehicles they saw on those roads.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Grosfield? Councillor Penner.
Nobody has any other. I'll make the motion that council accept the Rcmp quarterly report and Kneehill County Public Safety Report for information as presented.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a motion to accept for information as presented. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing as not, I'll call the question. All those in favor, and that is carried unanimously. 5.3.2, Peace Officer Program Updates. Welcome back. Anytime you're ready.
Still here.
Still here?
Okay, so we have some changes coming to the Peace Officer Program. They've done a complete manual overview and have made some changes. And so this kind of just summarizes those changes that are to the manual, what we have to do operationally, and what we have to do in policy as per the manual. So this is Alberta Justice and Solicitor General has completed this, and they actually did do some consultation with us. We were able to see parts of that manual, and we went over it together as a team and made some suggestions. So there you see changes to the manual. The first one, there's police service to sign off on traffic safety plans. We do have a traffic safety plan that we do, I think it's every 3 or 5 years, I can't remember. And we've haven't historically had that signed off by Rcmp, so we'll start to do that. CPO level 2 changes in roles, and so this was again resulting from that Lazenby inquiry. There was a bylaw enforcement call that went wrong, and a member had passed away down in southern Alberta. So that, since then, there's been lots of changes to the program, and one of them is that there's no longer a level 2 CPO. So as of December 31st, those level 2 community peace officers are going to be office people, so they can't even drive around in vehicles anymore. So either you are a CPO level 1 or you are an enforcement officer, and an enforcement officer is only under the MGA. So no traffic safety, no even parked cars, on any of that stuff. It's all just through the MGA that they can enforce. So 2 different kind of streams. They wouldn't be part of the Alberta Solicitor General stream. So new authority business cases. So should we wish to add authorities to appointments, we need to have a business case that talks about the intended need for that authority. So one of the things that we're looking at is possibly adding the Mental Health Act to their authorities so that they can be a little bit more support to Rcmp and FCSS in mental health issues in our area. And again, should these authorities change, this would require the policy to be changed. Expansion of geographical options for shared service agreements and joint force operations. So we basically need to, we have one section that we need to add to all of the municipal agreements. And then Solgen then needs to approve those agreements. So we have to send them to them afterwards, so that we have already done that, but that's just something that we have to do with those other municipalities, is to update all of those agreements. Amended supervisory review requirements. So we are in alignment with the required supervision of our CPOs. So we've just amended a little bit so that we actually have it written in our policy. The policies that I attached are the old policies. The new policies will be coming to council at the next meeting. Records retention policy, same thing. We already have a records retention policy. We have a separate software that we run all of our CPO incidents and tracking software for all of their, but we also now have video storage, same like the in-car videos, plus the videos now from the body-worn cameras that we need to recognize in our records retention. And so that will be an amendment to the policy. Warrant file creation and retention, again, create a procedure, and we've again added that into our policy. Mandatory submission of in-car and body-worn video. So should we go to court, that is a mandatory piece of evidence that we need to provide. Mandatory process for disengaging from possible pursuits. Again, it's included in our procedure, and we'll again just kind of beef that up a little bit from what's already in our policy. Standard operating guidelines. So we do have some procedures created, and some of those are through safe work practices, but we will be again looking at those and reviewing those standard operating guidelines. One of those is just that we already have in place, is we have a procedure for untidy premises and the way that we enforce that. We also have a procedure for known risks in our community. So we have a procedure that when they go out to a property, they need to see if there's a known risk associated with that property prior to. So they do run those checks before they go out to those properties. Jurisdiction map, so we've never included the jurisdiction map. We've just already known that single and double-digit highways are under RCMP jurisdiction, and we've left it at that. But we have included a map now this time. So, and then just kind of to clarify, so we would be able to get permission to now do single and double-digit highways if council so choose. That's something that we could add to their appointments. So that's a change. Privacy policy included protection of personal information. Again, just adding that to our policy. And then disciplinary, because it's no longer in our HR policy, we need to kind of put it into another policy. So we'll be adding that as well. Just a reference to that. Some enhanced authority additional options. So these are things that were added, that may be added by authorized employers to better serve our community, and it's to supplement the police service of the jurisdiction. I haven't had a chance to meet with Jamie to kind of go over these, but so you're seeing it prior to me having that conversation. But so the authorities that are available include non-urgent community calls, so criminal code under 5,000. Again, this is investigation purposes. Criminal code warrants, ability to arrest and release, and motor vehicle collisions, being able to investigate non-injury events. These are enhanced authorities, and they would not only require enhanced education and training, they're also going to be required to be added to appointments through the SolGen. In my opinion, I would recommend not to add these enhanced authorities. Number one, the training in order to do these would be a cost. And then number two, it's also the cost of, I mean, if we're going to do investigations of MVCs, we're going to be having to have on-call peace officers. We're going to be having them go out in the middle of night, possibly. So there's some work traveling. It's, in my opinion, it's just not a great idea. But again, I haven't had that conversation with Jamie, but, and the criminal code, I just see a tiny bit of creep happening into the criminal code. And again, I see how it would maybe help the police jurisdiction in getting some of those smaller crimes off their list. But I think it just opens up the door to a huge liability, risk, and cost that I don't know if the municipality needs to go there. So, but that's completely up to council if you so choose. And so these, there are long-term costs in operating, including software and hardware programming, storage capabilities. And I think that's about it for this. And I will be bringing these back. So the recommended motion is that we accept these as information. If you would like to see anything changed in a policy, just let me know. I will be bringing the amended policies as well to next council meeting for July, and they have been sent to Solicitor General for their review. So they have to review them prior to us accepting them. So if you do see something that's that you'd like to see differently, for sure, just comment and let me know. Questions?
Yes, Councilmember McGee.
Could you explain in a little bit more detail what new authority business cases you were referring to? Can you expand on that?
Sure. So just we would have to write a business case in order to get that new authority. So for instance, we were talking about the Mental Health Act. We would have to explain why that would be good for our municipality to take on the Mental Health Act onto those appointments. So a little bit more business case, like as in kind of like a reason why we are actually adding that. What's the intent behind adding that appointment to, or that authority to their appointments? Does that explain? Okay.
Council have any other questions for Ms. Grosfield? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Toombs.
Just a question, how long do they keep the records for? Like the recordings?
It depends on it just depends what it is all for. So that's going to be in the policy of how long we actually keep all of those different records. Because the storage is quite extreme. I believe it's only 2 years that we actually have to keep it, but I mean, we're still seeing ticket revenue from 7 years ago. So people are still going to court over files that are really long a time ago.
Councillor McGee.
You had spoke about not speaking to the detachment yet about a few things. Why would you be? Do you need that in order to do your policies, or is that because you'd like a feel of what they would expect from us?
On the enhanced authorities, I just haven't had time to talk to them about that. Before I bring the actual policies to council, I would definitely reach out to them and make sure that they are also okay with us not approving these authorities, I guess, is more of a conversational piece between us and them just to, I mean, if council wants to, we could go into the criminal code, but then that's a different relationship and a different maybe MOU with the RCMP that's required at that point.
Great, that's clarifies things, because I'm of the opinion definitely not.
Deputy Reeve King.
So you said that if we were to not do these, you'd have a conversation with them to determine if it's something that they wanted us to do, or like the choice is totally up to us.
Correct.
And so I guess, would you be looking for some rationale as to why we might consider that from them? Or are we just going to say, based on the recommendation, that we really aren't that interested in doing these things and therefore we're just going to exclude them?
Yeah, through the chair, I was just hoping to have a little bit more collaborative conversation around the issue, like where they're actually having issues on some of these. Like if they're having a whole bunch of mischief under 5,000, like they might not even want us to even touch this, right? Like, because again, they have operational issues in trying to call the peace officers in the middle of the night. Like, I'm pretty sure that they don't want to do that, is kind of, so it was just to have more of a collaborative conversation about these new authorities, and just as authorized employers, council is the one that sets the direction for this, not RCMP, for sure. Does that answer your question?
Yes and no. So I guess the reason I'm asking the question, if we have determined that our policy is going to be that we're not going to be involved with these additional enhanced authorities, is there a need to have a conversation other than just to say we have chosen to stay out? I guess that would be.
Yeah, yes. To answer that question, yes, I would still have the conversation, but it would be council has chosen to stay out. Yes.
Yes, go ahead, Kevin. I'm trying to remember your last name, sorry.
Thank you, Reeve. So knowing that this is a new direction of what's going forward, our manager would like to make sure that they have great communication with the RCMP to understand their intentions or potential conflicts that they see when they bring the policy forward. So it's more of understanding, we would prefer not to take over these functions that are normally a specialty in the RCMP's portfolio. But when we come back to council with policy, we want to understand and be able to inform council of what their opinion is at the same time.
Okay, thank you for that. And I apologize for, well, I didn't get your last name wrong. I just didn't get it, period, so. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
I guess I'm still.
Deputy Reeve King, yeah.
So I guess the question I would have at this point is, if we accept this information as an update and just for information, and that you're going to bring us amended policies back, are those amended policies going to include any of the enhanced authorities? Or are we today going to say we're just not going to do those things? And I guess I'm trying to find out exactly what direction you're wanting from us today. Do you want us to say no to the enhanced authorities? Or do you want to bring back policy that might include those and then have us say yes or no? Because if you bring the policy, develop a policy that includes one of those, and as council we say no, it's a fruitless effort. So I guess I'm really trying to decide, do you want us today to say no, or do you want us to wait to see the policy?
Through the chair, I would just recommend that you kind of just know that it's there, because it is a brand new, they're brand new authorities. And so I just wanted to kind of bring them to your attention. When I bring back the policies in July, they are still not going to have a recommendation to include those. And at that time, you can decide. It really today is just for information and just for you to have that information up front. It's not really to give us direction. If you at that time want to give me direction and want to go with these enhanced authorities or change the jurisdiction, include highways, whatever, you can have a little bit more, I guess, a better view of what those amendments look like in the policy, and we can go from there. It doesn't mean that you have to accept those policies in July either. If there's more additions or deletions that you would like, we can definitely look at that in more detail at that time.
Yes, Mike.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to follow up on what has been said, that is the intent today, and to build on that is to make council aware of the changes and to let you know that that's triggered some staff time on our part to update those policies, because some of those are not optional. We do have to make those updates. But the other one is, as has been presented to you today, is when we draft those policies going forward, as Deb has said, that the intent from our side is not to include those enhanced items. Really what today is for information, but it's also to do some of that initial alignment. So if council would have felt today really strongly that, hey, maybe we should look at that, which we're hearing is not the case, then that would have changed the work that we do over the next couple of weeks to amend those policies. But this is just kind of that forewarning to you that when we craft those new policies, you have an idea of the direction that we're going. And if you felt like you wanted to steer us a bit different direction today, we'd amend those policies accordingly. But as of now, we don't intend to include those. And as Deb has said, you'll have the opportunity to accept those policies at the next meeting or to send them back for further revision.
Thanks, Mr. Hogan. Are there any other questions for Ms. Grosfield from council? Deputy Reeve King.
If there are no other questions or concerns to be raised, I will make the motion then that council accept the peace officer program update as information and as presented. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have a motion to receive the report for information as presented. Is there any discussion to that motion? I see none. Call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Okay, our next agenda item, 5.3.3, Kneehill Regional Partnership Project. And anytime you are ready, Ms. Grosfield.
Okay, switching gears to fire. So the recommended motion for this RFD is that council approves the fire level of service policy project through the Kneehill Regional Partnership with project funds of $14,000 to come from the Corporate Initiatives 2022 operating funding. So relevant legislation is the OH&S for firefighters, NFPA standards, council bylaw. There's an existing level of service policy, which is entrenched in the 2003 standard operating guidelines. It's no longer a standalone policy for Kneehill County. Agreements, we do have individual agreements with Aacp Carbon, Linden, Trochu, and Three Hills Fire that refer to updating into this direction to include some changes to the fire level of service. The purpose of the fire level of service policy is to define operational expectations on levels of response, which has a direct impact to equipment, training, safety standards, and liability mitigation. The key drivers of this policy include an increasing number of larger buildings and different developments, property values, occupational health and safety requirements, and just general expectations of ratepayers. Many changes have occurred in our fire service since 2003, and we need to continually be building a sustainable fire service. On November 30th, 2021, a request for decision on potential regional initiatives was brought to Council. Council passed that motion to submit the regional fire level of service policy to the partnership to explore. On March 30th, the KRP met and the fire level of service policy initiative was presented to that group. And then all municipalities approved that request for proposal stage of this initiative. So we are not the only ones affected by this level of service policy. The end goal for this project is that each town, village, and county will have a level of service policy that will guide their decision-making in the fire service. The municipalities of Aacp Carbon, Linden, Three Hills, and Trochu provide fire services to Kneehill County through residents through the fire agreements, and all are to be renewed and reviewed by 2024. Currently, Kneehill County has a mutual aid agreement with the town of Drumheller as well. The Kneehill Regional Partnership Project will benefit Kneehill County by defining our level of service within the county, as well as collaboratively working with the other municipalities on building this foundational document for our area. So we have received one request for proposal in the amount of that was changed to 30,000. The amount has been split up into all these different amounts for each of the municipalities. Each of the municipalities has gotten back to us and has already approved their portion as outlined there in the chart. And so we are seeking $14,000 to be allocated to this project from either the corporate initiatives account or the operating reserves.
Council have any questions for Ms. Grosfield? Yes, Councillor McGee.
I love this project. I love that we're working as a region for it, and therefore I'd like to approve the fire level service policy project through the Kneehill Regional Partnership with project funds of $14,000 to come from the Corporate Initiatives 2022 operating funding.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion before us to approve the level of service policy with the project funds of $14,000 coming from corporate initiatives. Is there any discussion to the motion? Deputy Reeve King.
So I recognize that this is a Kneehill Regional Partnership project. Is there anywhere within this conversation that we're going to have a discussion with Drumheller for the portion of the county that they provide mutual aid and service to? I know it's outside of the partnership, they're not part of the partnership, but I'm just curious about that aspect.
Yeah, through the chair, Drumheller hasn't been part of this project for sure, but they are part of our fire services bylaw. And I'm pretty sure probably one of the recommendations is to bring them to the table for some collaborative discussions on fire.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Grosfield? how intensive is this fire level of service gonna be? How different is it gonna be from what we have now? Do you have any clue on that, or just?
Sorry, just for clarification on the process, like what the process is going to be
Yes.
looking like. So they are going to do some collaborative with not only each I'm the project lead, and then the other municipalities will all have a part in it. And then they'll collaborate with their fire departments as well. So our level of service policy, we only have one in the county right now for everybody. And so it really, each municipality, from what we can see, doesn't have their own, but they all have their own fire service bylaws. And so, yeah, so we're hoping to actually have a level of service policy for Kneehill County and then each of the municipalities. So that will be a little bit more, they'll be going over some like training requirements, they'll be going over our equipment, some of our kind of like our high-level budget, they'll be reviewing some of our agreements that we have in place. And then not only will they give us that policy, but they're actually going to give us a recommendation report on like moving forward in the fire service.
Okay, so ultimately what we have is a level of service for our department in Torrington. No, we don't. We will get that. Okay.
We will have a level of service for not only that department, but we will have it for Kneehill County as well. So any of those,
And that's
any
what
of those.
and that's what I'm getting at. So when
Yes.
each and every one of these municipal fire departments comes into our county, our level of service will prevail. Okay, and then they can do what they choose within their own municipality.
Right, right.
All right.
That's why we were saying only within their boundaries. So the village of Carbon would only have that level of service policy for within their own boundaries. Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
then therefore, any requirements that we have in the county for them to come out will be met with their training standard for whatever our training standard is.
Correct, yes. And we do already have that in our agreements with each municipality.
Yeah, all right, thank you. Okay, so anyway, we do have a motion in front of us. Mr. Hogan, did you have something to add?
It's just to build on what Deb has said. So through you, Mr. Reeve, is that's one of the key points that was brought up, is that ultimately this is what guides the training and equipment needs, not just for us, but the benefit of each of the municipalities having it, is that their needs, their equipment requirements and their training requirements will be outlined. So when we start working with them on updates to fire service agreements, on other things like that, we know what level of service that we're attempting to meet. The other component to that is that the levels of service are determined by the municipal councils, and there's an important component there. So to your question earlier, Mr. Reeve, in terms of how this will differ from what's existing, ultimately that's a decision that you guys around the council table will make, as to what you're willing or wanting to put in to meet the requirements of the community or meet the requests of the community, balanced with what the resource and time components that you're going to put on your budget and training requests that you're going to put on your municipal volunteers. So hopefully with that alignment, we do achieve a more cohesive fire service within the area, but this also helps prevent scope creep and to help contain costs going forward as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hogan. I was hoping we were headed in that direction, so thank you so much. Okay, so we do have a motion before us to approve the policy with the projected funds to come from corporate initiatives. Is there any other discussion to that motion? Okay, I see none. I will call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Grosfield. We have a delegation from Marigold for 9:30. So what I would like to do right now is call a short recess, and we will be back by 9:30. Give them time to set up their PowerPoint. So we're in recess. Thank you. Well, we'll start, I guess, by introducing ourselves. From my far right, and I guess, go ahead, Lorley.
Good morning, Lorley Michelle Cunningham, Division 5.
Good morning, Debbie Penna. I'm Division 2, so in the Swalwell Carbon area.
Morning, I'm Jerry Whitstock, the Aacp Linden Division.
Good morning, Ken King. I represent sort of the northeast, so Trochu, and not the town of Trochu, but the area around Trochu. So.
Wade Christie, I got the northwest, so Wimborne and part of Torrington and rural, so.
Faye McGee, Division 1, and I represent the southeast corner, which kind of wraps around the Drumheller Valley.
And joining us by video conferencing today is Carrie Phobes from the Torrington area. So if you could introduce yourself, and anytime you're ready to start the presentation, that would be awesome.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me, or is my...
You have to turn your mic on. Just push the button. Yep, there you go.
There, the red's now on. Thank you, Reeve. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, administration, for this opportunity to come to speak to you today. And I'd like to acknowledge in our audience as well, we have 2 Marigold board members in presence today. Faye McGee is the Marigold Library Board representative, and so is Carol from the town of Three Hills. We also have several members on the Three Hills Library Board, and a past member of the Three Hills Library Board, and 2 staff members, Karen Nickel, who is the library director, and Bev, who is also on the Three Hills staff. Karen has a very high rating, highly recommended and regarded in the Marigold system for her excellent work. I'd also like to say that Carolyn contacted me to see if I would come to shed some light on Kneehill's relationship with Marigold, notably whether continuing to be a Marigold member is a good value. And I was also here in December and presented some information at that time, and I'm happy to do some presentation of information today. And I'd like to start with a 2-minute YouTube video that we didn't have ready in December, but now we do, and it explains Marigold's purpose and the kinds of services that we provide. And Carolyn's got that teed up and ready to go.
The Marigold Library System was created to bring vast resources to small-town libraries. Today, Marigold provides library services for 43 municipalities and 340,000 residents. Libraries are relevant and necessary. They contribute to community sustainability, support economic development, and are often one of the factors that help people choose where to live. Many people consider libraries to be essential to daily living. Marigold provides vital services directly to people in remote areas and when they have mobility challenges. These services include library lending lockers for contact-free pickup, book deposits in small communities, and a mail service where books and resources are delivered directly to patrons. Marigold's website has collections of downloadable ebooks, music, movies, and training resources. The free TrackPack app allows people to request, borrow, and download materials conveniently from their home, school, or office. Marigold hosts and supports current technology to enable local residents and member libraries to bridge the digital divide, improve access to resources, and remove barriers to connectivity. This helps people of all ages to learn, develop skills and careers, and be self-supporting as adults. Marigold is a key partner with its member libraries and is the team behind your team to provide IT services. Source, buy, catalog, and share library collections. Develop policies. And provide training to local library staff and boards. Being part of the Marigold Library System also helps local libraries to provide affordable programs and services and serve as community gathering places. Marigold Library System, forward-thinking champion of exceptional library experiences.
Grammarly makes communication at work one click simpler.
Thank you. We're just going to switch
Whether
back
you're
to the
looking for a new
PowerPoint
job
now,
or
which
you
I
love the one
appreciate
you
very
have,
much the help
Grammarly
that I'm
can
getting
help
here.
you communicate with confidence.
I'd like to say that Marigold has a board of 43 members, as you saw in the video. We're a library system that was formed by municipalities who were members, equal members, that actually created Marigold to save money, to decrease duplication of effort, and to provide services that are roughly equivalent to what you get in a large urban center. So we still think that that's important for all of our rural members as well. But I'd like to say that Marigold isn't the only board that you deal with. There are 5 other library boards in the Kneehill area. If a municipality has a library, they also must have a library board as defined by the Libraries Act. And our existence is also defined by the Provincial Libraries Act as well. So. There. So. I've been a professional librarian and a library manager for 46 years, and I'm retiring in 24 hours. One thing I know from experience is that people in all walks of life are passionate about their libraries. Take away their libraries, and there's fireworks. People are supportive and passionate about library service even if they don't use libraries. In fact, we know from experience that more people donate to libraries who aren't active library users than are active library users. We have an example of that recently at Three Hills Library, where someone who moved to California a long time ago put in their will $3,000 to donate to the Three Hills Library. Even though 31% of the population in some studies do not actively use the library, surveys show that people rate public library service in the top 3 or 4 municipal services, along with fire, ambulance, and police. Not everyone uses a library every time and every day or week or year in their life. But at some point, library service is important for toddlers and preschoolers, for school preparedness, and for their parents, for seniors who often get lonely, for people who've lost their jobs and are low income, for special needs, for students, for people who want to save money or share resources. It is true, we know that from our statistics, and particularly in the last 2 years, that when there are financial pressures or a downturn in the economy, library use goes up. So we were happy to hear that the provincial government did deem public libraries as an essential for daily living. Public library service is municipally funded and supported, and out of the 320 or so municipalities in Alberta, only 4 or 5 are not part of regional library systems or large library systems in their own right. And public libraries do generate an economic impact and often attract people to their community. So the reason why I'm telling you all of this is because I think that library service is an important civic service and is worth retaining and protecting in all municipalities. So, and we know in the Three Hills case and the other 4 municipal libraries in Kneehill County that a lot of the users of the library services that we see are from Kneehill County. Marigold's funding from levies is about 66% of our revenue, and we get 25% of our revenue from provincial grants. All of this revenue is pooled so that every resident and every library benefits, large and small. Every resident in our 43 municipalities is charged the same amount, and Marigold has a service population of 348,000 people. You can tell from the map on the screen that our territory goes from the Saskatchewan border to the BC border, and as far north as Trochu and Carnsert, and as far south as Longview and High River. We stretch across the province. We don't include Calgary, but we surround Calgary. To help with increasing memberships, because I know that that is probably one of the things that you're looking to achieve, I have brought some things today. I have brought a whole package of Discover the Possibilities brochures, which can be distributed to people in your area to tell them about the variety of things that they can get through the public library. It's not just borrowing books, and I'll come back to that a bit later, but there are many, many other services that you can acquire. So I'm going to hand these over, and if you have a mail out or a way to distribute this to all of your residents, we'd be happy to print and provide those brochures. We have another handout as well, and it is called Empower Your Future, and it's explaining why being part of Marigold Library System is a good thing, what you can benefit, what the individual can benefit by being part of the Marigold Library System, which is indeed through your membership. I've also brought a profile description of the Marigold Library System and a handout that explains how funding works. And what I have done just yesterday, as a matter of fact, is look at the funding that the 5 municipalities in your area get, where those sources are, and I'm happy to explain that in further detail if you'd like. So, as prescribed by the Libraries Act, Marigold has a mastered agreement that Kneehill signed in March of 2006. Marigold has been in existence for 41 years, and from time to time, the master agreement needs to be updated. And we distributed in April a package that included some letters and the updated agreement and another document which we call Schedule C, which outlines the levy rates for 2023 and 2024. And we're asking you, and if you would consider signing that, because when we get 60% of our members signing that agreement, it goes into effect. So the things that are changing in the Marigold agreement, it's very little change actually, because it's based on the Libraries Act. So our wording is pretty much the same, but these are the 3 things that I think are essential to know about what has changed. Number 1, up until 2019, provincial population, which is used for the calculation of levies, came from municipal affairs. They stopped doing that in 2019, and it shifted over to Treasury. So we changed the language in the agreement just to say the province of Alberta, or the provincial government, because it could change again. But we will always rely on the provincial government statistics as a good source and an even source for all municipalities. We also changed the language about the ownership of our collections, so that if a library were to withdraw or close, the board would own the collection. And I think that that is appropriate, because Marigold's not in the position to house collections, and we certainly provide those collections, but we don't want to keep those collections or look after them. And then the last thing really is a commitment to collaboration, because we were designed in accordance with the Libraries Act to be a membership collaborative, like a co-op, so that we could save money, but we are not in the business to make money. We are a not-for-profit organization. So just a couple of words about the updated levy schedule, which is what we call Schedule C because it's the last page of the Marigold Agreement. It has levy rates outlined for 2023 and 2024, and this is something that we do quite regularly. We try to stay a year ahead of what those levy rates are going to be, to give you a heads up for your budgeting purposes of what that levy is going to be. And the Marigold Board makes the decision as to what that will be when it is sent out to the councils, and we need 60% of the councils to approve that before it goes into effect. So those levy rates are being impacted by a small increase of 1%. So we're going from $10.74 to $10.85 in 2023. 1% is not nearly what we're all facing with inflation right now, but before we even considered implementing that increase, we also kept levy rates the same for the past 3 years, and we didn't increase the provincial population for 2 years. So now we're at the point where we need to do a bit of catch-up ourselves. So this, in 2021, Marigold got $120,000, almost $121,000 in levy revenue from Kneehill County and its 5 municipal libraries. And I count that as one group because we pool the revenue. In the annual value of your investment reports that we send out to all of our municipalities, and we have a report called The Power of Your Library Card that we send out to the counties as well, along with copies of those value of your investments, what we calculated was that we had invested $485,000 into your municipal libraries for support. And that's a whole basket of things. Collection is one thing, deliveries, consultation, IT services, which could not be afforded in any other possible way by libraries these days, as well as electronic resources, marketing. The list just goes on. It's quite a long list of services that we do provide so that our municipal libraries, like Three Hills, can concentrate on what they do best, which is interact with their community, serve their customers, get to know what their community needs, and to develop programs and services that are best suited for that community. So the levy rate, as I mentioned, is going up 1%. And Marigold did this because we're faced with escalating costs as well, and many of the same ones that you'll recognize too, like fuel costs. Our delivery vans drove over 200,000 kilometers last year. So the cost of gas is certainly having its impact, as are utilities. But I have some good news, and that is that we had moved into our new building when I came in December, but now we have been in our new building for about 3/4 of a year. And so we've now put together all of the costs for building that building, and we saved 10% in that building. So we saved $800,000 from what we estimated the cost was going to be. And that was some things that were possible because of COVID and because of the competition at the time, but mostly because of the compromises and the care that we take in the planning and the careful stewardship that we did to make sure that we kept track of everything that was going on. So I want to talk a little bit about the statistics, and particularly your membership statistics. I heard that Kneehill Council had a question about Marigold services costing $80 per cardholder. That calculation likely came by dividing the number of cardholders into the levy paid to Marigold by Kneehill County. I also heard that there might be a concern about declining number of cardholders. And I'd just like to talk about those two issues and why just taking that number and doing that simple calculation doesn't reflect the whole picture. First of all, there are around 700 Kneehill cardholders. People who have acquired a library card and have used that library card to borrow materials or access resources online remotely in the last 2 years. They could still be using their online services. We do an annual purge, and since that database cleanup on May 24th, 24 new memberships have been issued. So although we dipped a little below 700, we're really creeping up and we'll probably exceed 700 by the end of this year. So the other thing that's really important for me to emphasize is that those aren't individuals. Those are very likely households, families. It is a common choice when you're traveling some distance and you maybe have 2 or 3 people with you to use one library card. It's easier to keep track of what you borrowed. It's easier to keep track of the due dates when you have one card in hand and you're using one card. So we think that the 700 card holders is also a reflection of your households. And I'm assuming, well, I don't think I have to assume, I think it's true that you don't have 5,000 households in Kneehill County. So also what could have attributed to the largest drop in cardholders occurred during COVID when libraries were closed. and we're only allowed to provide limited services. It's hard to renew or get a library card when the library's closed. And libraries across Alberta are now regaining use, regaining visitors, regaining members, regaining circulation. It's creeping back up. It's slowly getting back up to a point where it was before. Some libraries charge to get or renew a library card. Not Three Hills, but there are some libraries in Kneehill County where they do charge. They need to charge. It's part of their revenue stream. And when they charge, it is even more likely that a family will choose to have one library card. It's not necessary to have a library card to use a lot of the library services. And I have a slide where I'll show you some of those examples. It's quite remarkable, really. You could be quite content using a library if you could come into the physical facility without having a library card. The people who use the Torrington book deposit do not have to have a library card because that's a volunteer service. They can just walk in and it's like a take one, leave one library service. And we also know, this will be a small percentage, very small percentage, but sometimes Kneehill County, just residents get counted in the municipal numbers when it comes to card holders. So, as I said, I'm mentioning all of this because I think it's not a one-on-one relationship between the number of card holders and your actual population. So what can you do without a library card? Well, I'm not going to read the list, but you can see in front of you there's quite a few things. And this is largely governed by the Libraries Act, which says that we can't charge people to come into a library and read and browse in the library. We can't charge people to attend programs. And there's lots of things that our libraries do to encourage people to come into libraries, to engage in conversations, to reinforce the principles of democracy. So that probably is a good taste of the kinds of things that the library staff are doing for the community where we don't actually require a library card in hand. I hope I'm not moving through this too quickly, but I'm going to go to the next slide. And having said what you can do without a library card, there's even more that you can do if you have a library card. And here are some of the examples. And again, I'm not going to read them out loud, but I also have a few more to add because the page wasn't quite big enough. And there are many, many more things that we can think of, such as to learn a language with the software that's provided by the province of Alberta. It's called Pronunciator, and it's available if you have a library card at no charge on our online portal. To read the Calgary Herald or the Edmonton Journal for free. To stream movies and TV shows from Hoopla. To learn a new craft with a new e-resource that we just launched a couple of months ago, and it's called Creative Bug. Gives you all kinds of ideas of things that you can try. To help your children with their homework using Solaro, which has curriculum materials and practice tests for grades 3 to 12, and that's a very key resource for our parents and our education community, because the province is not providing that resource, so they're getting it through the public library. And to borrow from the Library of Things, Carolyn was reminded last time as well that there's this amazing array of things if your local library chooses to acquire them, and many do throughout Marigold, things like bicycles and power tools and gardening supplies and tents and ski poles and snowshoes, and you know, the list is hundreds long. And Marigold catalogs those. They're in the online catalog so that people can put in their requests and borrow them just like they would normal kinds of materials like books and DVDs. So one thing is for sure, libraries have diversified and adapted a lot in the last couple of decades, and the transformation continues. And the other thing we know is that our operations are based on sound business principles. I'd like to read a quote from Chrissy Clark, who is a community leader in Langdon, where they're working with the community and with Rockview County to create a new library in that community of 6,000 people. She was applying for funding, and this is how she described the library. When most people think of libraries, they mostly think about books, but they are a lot more than that. Libraries give space for the whole community, story time for tots, a place for seniors to reminisce, homework help, a quiet place to work for both students and adults, and job search and resume support for the unemployed. Lending out books is a minor service that libraries provide. They are the hub of the community. To that I would add, books are still pretty important business for us. Still 90% of our circulation comes from actual physical materials. So it's not something we're abandoning, but we know from our use that it is a much wider range of potential and possibilities that we can provide. So something I really don't want to dwell on, because it is so important to us that Kneehill continues to be a member of Marigold. But I just want to make you aware of some of the consequences and impacts of withdrawal. It has become very apparent during COVID that people used online library resources like never before. And that's because the physical libraries and the other public spaces weren't available to them. So they depended on those resources a lot. So we know that social infrastructure is really important, and it's not just a luxury. But if your council makes a decision to withdraw, the Marigold Agreement spells out how it can happen. For example, if you were to withdraw this year before December 31st, 2022, the withdrawal would go into effect on January 1st, 2024. So there's a year. At that time, all library services from Marigold would cease for Kneehill residents. Track cards would be canceled. So all the library cards would be canceled. There is no option in Marigold to purchase library services on a per family basis, and if there were, it's a board decision for each of the member municipalities how they're going to handle that. And it would cost an arm and a leg because it would be on a cost basis. Local library boards would get to choose who and how they provided service as long as it was in-house. And I'll give you an example of where I think this might be very, very sticky or tricky, and that would be in Aacp and Linden, where you have schoolhouse libraries, and you'd have to say to this group of children, you live in Linden or Aacp, you can have a library card, but you don't live in Aacp or Linden, so you don't get a library card. That'd be very hard to make that distinction, very hard for the staff to even sort that out. In addition to that, on the backside, Marigold would lose a lot of provincial funding, about, well, over $50,000. And our local libraries that count on service grants from Marigold would not be getting those grants, which are paid out of the provincial funding that comes to Marigold because Kneehill County doesn't have its own library board. The support that Marigold provides to the Torrington Book Deposit would cease. And local libraries would get smaller book allocations without Kneehill's population. I think I'll stop at that point. The list can go on, and it's not a happy subject, and I really hope that we never have to visit that, because it's super important to us that your membership will continue to be a strong one. We've had a good relationship with Kneehill County since 2006, and we see a lot of future in it as well. So I'd rather focus on the positive. And to let you know, because I'm just about finished, that our new board chair is John Getz. You may know him because he's been on our Marigold board for over 15 years, and he's a practicing lawyer in Strathmore. My CEO replacement, July 1st, is Lynn Price, who has worked at Marigold for 12 years as service delivery director, and she was the project manager for our new building. Marigold has a bright future. it's in good hands, and I hope I answered your questions. But I do want to thank you, because as I have been with Marigold for 13 years, it's been a wonderful job, it's been a wonderful run, and one thing that I have truly enjoyed a lot is coming to councils and talking to councils. So thank you for this opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Toombs. I appreciate you coming forward and presenting your information. Are there any questions from council for Michelle? I guess at one point you'd stated that students, if Kneehill County was to pull out, that Kneehill County students would not have a library card, but yet the ones in the municipalities would still have theirs. How do you determine how many students are actually from Kneehill County and how do you count those? Are they counted in this 705 number?
Yes, they are. As long as they get a track library card, they are counted. And the reason that we can count them is that we have this massive library management system called Polaris, which would cost $1 million for us to replace if we had to. And when we create a patron record in that database so that we can accommodate other transactions like circulation, renewals, returns, and so on, we have to fill out a form. And in that form, there is a field which we are required to fill in, and it says, where does this person live? And then there's a menu of choices, and if they live in Kneehill County, then we identify that as Kneehill County. So we can extract that information based on age and where they stated that their residence is, and some other information as well.
So I'm trying to figure out, is every Kneehill County student a card holder? Like, do you know that information, or?
I don't control directly that information, and every library board has a different approach to that.
Okay.
But if you're in a school, like Aacp and Linden are, it's very likely that when the kids come down to the library, that they're going to be getting a library card so that they can borrow books from that library. And I think that probably Carbon and Trochu and Three Hill also have some outreach efforts which connect them to schools so that they can encourage and make sure that students have an opportunity to have that track card.
Yes, Councillor McGee.
Just for clarity, in a previous job, I was able to be exposed in some of the programming and how that worked. So the students don't necessarily have a card. So if they're in the library during school hours for school projects, they do not need to use their card. And so that's why some students might have it, some don't, because if you want to use it other than for that school time, that's when they would require a card.
Okay. Are there any questions from council for Ms. Toombs? Well, I don't see any forthcoming. You've covered the subject very well, Michelle. You do offer a lot of services. Thank you for bringing that forward. The new building, $8 million?
No, we didn't spend $8 million. We said we would cap our expenditures at $8 million, and we ended up spending $7.2 million.
Okay. Now that's...
And it's in partnership with the Western Irrigation District. And that has turned out to be a very good arrangement because we have this enormous, lovely meeting area space that, Faye, you saw that. And WID paid half of it. So.
Yeah, okay, I was just trying to do the math here because you said you'd saved 800,000, so wasn't sure if it was originally 8 million, which obviously it was, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, if there are no other questions, which I don't see any forthcoming, I would like to thank you. I would like to thank the representatives from Three Hills Library for coming forward. And we are dealing with this further into our agenda, so thank you so much for coming forward and giving us the information. It'll make it Well, we can't make a decision without information, so it was great to get this information.
I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, thank you
And
so
I
much.
hope that we have a long relationship in the future, too. Thank you.
So, one other question. When Kneehill County originally came in, I think it was $36,000 back in '06. Has it just gone up consistently, the levy rates, or was there a jump at one point in time? It seems to me there was a jump at one point in time.
Yeah, I believe there was too. I started in 2009. But when I came, Marigold hadn't increased its levy rates for 6 years. And the board realized what the impact of that was. It was more difficult to make a case and to catch up. It took some time. And so with our levies in Schedule 3 in 2010, 2011, and 2012, there was an increase. I don't remember the percentage at the time. But what we've tried to do up to the last 3 years, where we didn't increase the municipal levy rates, was to increase it a little bit each year to reflect the increasing costs. One of the cost factors that we have little control over are our IT and digital subscription contracts, which mostly come from the states, and they all increase at 5% every year. So those are the kinds of things that are going on in the background with our accounting system that we have to keep on top of. We also have found, and you probably too have found, that fuel has almost doubled in cost in the last year.
Oh yeah, a lot of things have gone up, and I got a feeling it just might be the way of things to stay, so. But anyway, thank you so much for coming forward. Appreciate the information, and we, like I say, we will deal with this further on in our agenda.
Thank you
And
kindly.
good luck on your retirement.
Thank you very
starting
much.
tomorrow.
And thanks for your support and Faye's support. It's great. Thanks.
Okay. We'll get back to our agenda. And our next agenda item, 7.1, would be the Rural Economic Development Response to the federal letter. Mr. Hogan, you're taking that, I take it?
I am. Through you, Mr. Chair, this item is back in front, well, I guess it's not back in front of council, it's before council for the first time. However, you did, as a committee of the whole, discuss this at your previous meeting. And so this is bring forward that direction from committee of the whole to this body so that you can make a decision on the feedback you'd like to give to various members of parliament regarding where you think that the federal government should be assisting rural municipalities regarding economic development. The conversation from committee of the whole outlined 3 areas as was requested, and those were the access to reliable and consistent high-speed internet, supports for labor, which would include areas of housing, social, education, and medical, overall costs relating to supply chain, fuel, etc. So basically amounting to the ability to have an online presence, to be able to conduct commerce, to advertise goods and all those things reliably on the internet. Supports for labor, so if you're going to have a business, you're going to need a labor pool. Those individuals coming to work are going to need community supports in order to make that community attractive for them to even be there to provide labor. And C, overall costs, as we just saw from the Marigold presentation, as we've seen from our own budget discussions, is costs and timelines are experiencing significant escalations right now. So there's a concern there, and obviously that's being shared by private enterprise as well. So the recommended motion, if council is good with those, if administration has caught those correctly, then we're recommending the council direct administration to draft and send a response on behalf of Kneehill County Council to members of Parliament Kirk, Stubbs, and Gord on the top 3 issues affecting rural economic development.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. Are there any questions for Mr. Hogan from council. It's really unfortunate that municipalities that are under 20,000 people receive less support from the federal government than those that are deemed as more important, I guess. I don't know how they figure that out, but yeah, we do have issues, and I think we've captured the biggest ones. Not to say there isn't a pile more, but what are council's wishes here? Councilor Christie.
Seeing as how we chewed this up at the cow meeting, I'll make the motion to direct administration to draft and send a response on behalf of Kneehill County Councilman to members of Parliament, MPs Keurig, Stubbs, and Gourde on the top 3 issues affecting our rural economic development.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have a motion before us to send our top issues to our federal representative and his part of his committee. Is there any discussion to that motion? Seeing as not, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Okay, we are losing some obsolete bylaws, are we? Our next agenda item, 7.2, Bylaw 1858. And is it you, Carolyn, that's presenting?
It is me.
All right, anytime you are ready, Ms. Vanderkool.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, as a way to provide good governance, Kneehill County Administration has been actively reviewing the bylaw database to ensure the bylaws that are in place are in order and comply with current legislation. Kneehill County's bylaw database consists of 1,958 bylaws. Upon comprehensive review of the bylaw database, it has discovered more than 90 bylaws that are obsolete or redundant. These bylaws largely fall into one of the 4 categories. Number 1, bylaws that were created for a very specific purpose and once acted upon have no further effect or are no longer required. Number 2, bylaws that have been superseded by a change in overarching legislation or by another bylaw. Number 3, bylaws that were created for a specific purpose or situation that no longer exists. Or number 4, bylaws that were created for a specific time period which is now elapsed. In the next couple months, administration will bring around 10 bylaws per meeting for repealing. So instead of having a huge, gigantic 90-some bylaws, I thought we would just bring it down to about 10 bylaws. And I've kind of sorted them out so they're all kind of the same kind of bylaws. And so the first 10 I have here are just leases in various locations. Yeah, just leases and authorizing people to lease Kneehill County lands, which are no longer Kneehill County lands. And the time period has elapsed in these leases.
Okay, are there any questions for Ms. Vanderkool from council? And if not, what are council's wishes? Councillor McGee.
I move that council give, that first reading be given to bylaw 1858, that being a bylaw to repeal obsolete, redundant, and outdated bylaws.
All righty. So we have a motion to give first reading to bylaw 1858 to repeal some obsolete, redundant, and outdated bylaws. Is there any discussion of that motion? Seeing not, call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Councillor Penner.
I found it interesting looking at these bylaws, and you have a bit of a good chuckle, but I would make the motion that council provide second reading to bylaw 1858.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to approve second reading for bylaw 1858. Is there any discussion to that motion? And seeing not, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. Does somebody want to make a motion to have consent for third. Counselor Christie.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion to receive consent for third. All those in favor? Let the record reflect that that was a unanimous vote. And we have Deputy Reeve King.
So then I'll make the motion that council provide third reading to bylaw 1858.
Okay, we have a motion for third reading of bylaw 1858. Last chance, any discussion on that motion? See none, call the question. All those in favor? And that is unanimous.
I sure like the price of that gravel at 10 cents a cubic yard.
I think there might still some of that be out there. If you can get it out of the ditch. Now, our next agenda item is the meeting with Minister Shandro. And who's, Carolyn, are you putting this forward?
Want me to?
Okay, anytime you're ready, Ms. Vanderkool.
Sure. So we received an email from Minister Shandro's office. They would like, and they're requesting from Kneehill County to have a joint virtual meeting with the town of Three Hills and Kneehill County to discuss policing services, including the potential Alberta Provincial Police Service and any other matters the municipality wishes to cover. And they've set the date already for July 6th from 2 p.m. to 2:45 p.m. And they want to know if this 45-minute virtual meeting will work for Kneehill County.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Vanderkool. Where is it being held?
It's virtual, so
Yes, but
it
here
could be
in
held. It
council?
could be held here. Yeah, I can organize that.
Okay, that was just a question I had. Are there any other questions for Ms. Vanderkool? So there would not be an issue for all of council or whoever chooses to attend to be part of this?
They said anybody from council can participate, so I can't.
Okay.
And also MLA Nathan Cooper will also be in attendance
Virtually,
virtually.
okay?
But I could send him an invite if he wants to attend here, if you wish.
Okay. So do we authorize attendance for any or all of council to attend this meeting? Is that what we're looking for as a motion?
Through Mr. Reeve, for this one here, I think this is part of your normal course of duties. And during that, it's a request for a member of cabinet to meet with council. So I don't know that you need a specific motion to approve council attending. The items before you more just to confirm that council does actually want to have this meeting.
Okay, what's council's thoughts? Councillor McGee.
I think whenever we're asked to be part of something like that, it's important to participate. So if we need a motion, do we need a motion to, that we are in agreement to attend?
Mr. Hogan.
To send a letter,
Through-
a response that we are in agreement to attend?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Reeve, the recommended motion would be that council direct administration to, we'll word it up as we get a moment here, but basically that council direct administration to confirm the meeting with the Honorable Minister Shandro.
Okay. Any other questions? And this is to do with policing services, or is it to deal with the provincial police force?
Potentially both.
Potentially both? Okay,
So through you, Mr. Reeve, we'd suggest just on the motion that's before you to just add regarding police services.
yeah. Wait for that to come up on screen. Oh, looks like it is. Is that what we're looking for, Mr. Hogan?
I believe that will suffice for our purposes, yes.
Okay, so Councillor McGee, you made that motion?
Yes, I like it. Thank you. I also think just part of the discussion to that motion would be that we need to remember that we are to give names of who specifically will be attending. So we'll need to get a hold of administration and let them know individually so they can respond appropriately.
Okay, so that doesn't have to be part of the motion, but that is one of the. All righty, so we have a motion before us to direct administration to confirm the meeting with the Honorable Minister Shandro regarding policing services. Is there any discussion to that motion? I see none. Call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. All right, our next agenda item, 7.4, Aacp Awards. And Mr. Hogan, are you taking this one?
I can do, Mr. Reeve.
Anytime you're ready.
Okay. This is through you, Mr. Reeve, to council. This is a request that we've received from a member of the Three Hills Detachment. They're looking to put an award submission together to recognize one of their members, and they're asking if the county would write a letter in support of that application. Administratively, we're recommending that we do. If council agrees with that and with the information that was provided to you, then administration would craft a letter for the Reeve signature, and we would forward that accordingly.
Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Hogan from council? Seeing as not, someone care to make a motion? Or do we have one coming up yet? You will?
Yep. Just based also on my activity with the Police Advisory Committee, we also have seen some outstanding results. And really, I personally think that this falls in place with both that representation as well as for our own communities. So I would like to make the motion that we direct administration to send a letter on council's behalf nominate in agreement of nominating Sergeant Day for award for outstanding service for AACP award. Sorry.
Mr. Hogan, is that what we would need for a letter of support or a motion? Sorry.
Through Mr. Reeve, I believe that would work.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion, and I'll read it out loud for the benefit of Councillor Forbes. To direct administration to send a letter on council's behalf co-nominating Sergeant Jamie Day for the Alberta Association of Chiefs of Police Award. I think that's an outstanding service award, is it not?
But it's under the Alberta Association of Chiefs of Police.
Okay, all righty, thank you. All right, so we have a motion before us. Is there any discussion to that motion?
Sorry,
Councillor McGee.
just to be particular, we need to change the word achievement to service.
Yeah.
Award for outstanding service.
All righty. Is there any other discussion to the motion? I take that to be a friendly amendment.
I just would like to say that I think it's very deserving of him to be nominated for this award.
And I would certainly agree. Okay, so if there is no other discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Alrighty, so our next agenda item is disposition of delegate business. 8.1, Marigold Library Agreement and Schedule C. Ms. Vanderkool. I think you're
Thank you,
taking it.
Council. Pardon me?
I think you're
Yes.
taking it, yes?
Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome.
So, so this agenda topic was brought to the May 24th, 2022 council meeting. Council had numerous questions regarding the changes and asked for further information. And as you heard earlier, we had Michelle Toombs come and answer some of those questions and had a presentation. So the motion that we're looking for today is that council approve the revised Marigold Library Agreement as presented. And the second motion that council approve the per capita levy rates listed on the revised Marigold Library Schedule C as presented. I don't think you want me to list out all the changes that were made to the agreement.
No, I think we'll let you off the hook there.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions for Ms. Vanderkool from council? Did we get the information that we were looking for? I guess we had that opportunity, so.
Can
Councillor Penner.
somebody just refresh my memory when she said the per cap numbers, they got them from, not necessarily oh, what did we just do? Sorry, gone blank.
It was the numbers from,
Correct, so
Yes.
that is where the 5,057 is coming from, not
Yes.
from our census.
exactly.
Well, our last census showed us at 4992 or something.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but it's written right into the Libraries Act that that's the number we're to use.
Be interesting to see where they come up with these numbers. So is this a 3-year agreement? Is this a 1-year agreement? Where are we at? Any ideas?
For the agreement, the last time we signed an agreement was in 2008 when the last changes were made. So the agreements last for a really long time. It's the Schedule C that is attached to the agreement that changes annually. Listed on the screen is the levy rates from the last 7 years.
Yep.
So there hasn't been a change in the last 3 years, sorry.
That's okay. So by accepting this agreement does not mean we can't pull out of it in the future, we just have to give 12 months' notice.
Exactly.
Councillor McGee.
I have to put my little plug in. I don't know, I guess we need a motion though before I speak to, I can do it first though, whichever you prefer.
Well, if you'd like to put a motion forward and then we can.
Okay. Can get tired of seeing my name in the minutes. I'd like to approve the revised Marigold Library Agreement as presented.
Okay. Discussion to the motion.
My discussion is, I think that being part of Marigold Library is a very critical part. It aligns well with our strategic plan. It speaks both to having a quality of life. It really does a lot of youth work of all the activities that we do fund. This one has a high youth number. It attracts our people to our communities. It helps us have a stronger economy, I believe. I think the use is broad. And as far as educational, social programming, building community spirit, a lot of partnerships are happen this way. And plus there's a lot of leveraging of our money to expand what we get out of our money through the through many different aspects, such as how they buy their equipment, how they buy their books, with the pool buying and it going through their system, has really given all the smaller libraries opportunities to be much more broad in what they provide to each of our members. So I'm just a very avid believer that for our money, of all the services we provide, it has the most direct link to the people. When we compare it to, say, a service like fire, we spend a lot of money on it for the safety, but not as much direct use.
Councillor Penner.
I think COVID brought a lot of light of how valuable the libraries are, especially for those that can't afford a lot of the computer stuff and just the support. One thing I'd like to see, and maybe can bring it back to the board, Councillor McGee, is the provincial government deemed it as an essential service or a necessity. I think they should be putting in more than 25% of the funding to run it, but that's my thoughts, especially when they deem it as a necessity or an essential service.
Guess I'll put my 2 bits worth in. I see the user numbers dropping, and then I see the population rising. I don't necessarily put a lot of faith into the numbers, I guess, is where I'm going with it. But is there any way we can contest the population numbers? I mean, we're not even at 5,001 currently. And now we're showing that we're going to be gaining 56 people in 6 months from now, obviously. Thoughts, Mr. Hogan?
Through Mr. Eve, I think that would be, I understand the concern and frustration. I think it would be hard because it is right in their legislation as to
Where the number comes from.
yeah. Now, they have changed that to just be the province, so I mean, if you found a different official provincial source, I don't know that would, I think you could try. I think ultimately the endeavor would be unsuccessful.
Yeah, I think you're probably correct, other than doing our own census, which, you know, it's one thing to say that we're only raising the rate by 1%, but you're also adding to the population, which is, I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's accurate, so. But regardless of, that was my comment on it. So, is there any other discussion? Yes, Deputy Reeve King.
I don't think we could do a census for 600 and change dollars, so perhaps relying on the province might be a more economic choice. I know, I guess I am a supporter of libraries, although I personally don't use the library, but I know my wife and mother-in-law both do, so. So yeah, I guess I would be in support of this motion, and even though I don't necessarily agree with the numbers.
And I guess just to clarify my position, I was actually not looking to do a census. But if our numbers can go up by 56 and our actual numbers actually drop by 8, none of this correlates. But regardless, I'm sure the province is way wiser than I. Just Councillor McGee, and then okay.
I just wanted to say, maybe talking about those numbers as far as our treasury numbers, that might be an RMA project we could bring forward, because Marigold has used that same number for that's where they got the numbers for everyone else in the region who signed the contract, and it's also just out of their hands. So I think that controversy or disagreement to the number is not part of a Marigold discussion. It's a separate discussion altogether.
Okay, Ms. Vanderkool, you had a comment.
Yes, I was gonna say, I'd really like to work with communications this year and promote Marigold library cards. I think there's probably a lot of people in the community that don't know that they're free, and that maybe this summer, like, have a promotion for them to go out and get their library cards for with their kids and visit a library this summer. So maybe that will increase our numbers.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion before us. And that motion is to approve the revised Marigold Library Agreement as presented. Is there any more discussion to that motion? I see none. Call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I think we have another motion on this subject. Councillor Penner.
We can have more discussion after I make the motion that council approve the per capita levy rates listed on the revised Marigold Library Schedule C as presented.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the per capita levy rates listed. I personally am going to vote against it because I do not believe the numbers are accurate. Is there any discussion to that motion? Okay, oh, Councillor Christie?
I was just gonna comment that I've talked to several people where you don't know the library is being used, but digitally, they all talk about, I get my ebooks there. I mean, so there's lots of use, and whether they need a library card to do that or not, I don't know that.
Okay, Councillor McGee?
Yes, they do. And they also have the shut-ins can have it mailed to their door or to their post office box, whichever community you're in. And I think, you know, we're looking, that's where I say it, the social programming aspect of connecting people is beyond any other service we're able to provide here. So that's one of the main reasons why I really like it. Yet I do know that a rate per cap is the highest thing, pretty high, but it's fair.
Okay, is there any other discussion to the motion? Okay, I see none. So we have a motion to approve the per capita levy rates listed on the revised Marigold Library Schedule C as presented. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Okay. Our next agenda item, Council and Committee Reports, 9.1. I guess we don't have any. Council follow-up action list, number 10. Questions, concerns? Motions? Yes. Mr. Hogan.
Through you, Mr. Reeve, we do have one question on behalf of administration. We do have an item there, 9722, AUMA Energy Audit, Deputy Reeve King. Move that council request administration to provide additional information for the proposed projects as presented. Just wanted to clarify what, in terms of the information that council is looking for, is there something specific council's looking to have brought back, or is that something that we can address during the budget process?
Which motion? Okay, go ahead, Deputy Reeve King.
I think my recollection of the conversation was there was a large number of projects that were in the AUMA audit, and there was some that were suggested they would be addressed and some that might not. And so I think the idea behind the conversation was that we would expect to see from administration more clarity on the projects that they were actually going to bring forward. And if that happened in a budget discussion, I think that's probably appropriate. So I don't necessarily think for myself, I would need anything more than that, other than for administration to identify which projects and how they're going to impact our spending.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve King. I think what we can, with that clarity, is I think we can, I'll talk with the relevant staff, and we can come up with something, probably a brief report and then a follow-up in the budget process to check that one off.
Okay. Any other concerns? Oh, Councillor Cunningham.
I'm just wondering about the engagement session that we are going to have with the, for the Wastewater feasibility study and information. Do we have a time frame kind of earmarked for that? Are we looking at summer, or I know fall gets to be busy for our folks?
To Councillor Cunningham, through you, Mr. Reeve, we don't have a specific time frame identified for that to take place. I think part of what we'll be looking at is determining what engagement council wants to conduct, so that we can structure the engagement accordingly. Like really what that boils down to is knowing what we want to engage on and what the purpose of that engagement is. If, depending, the purpose of that engagement may change depending on what level of influence council's looking for the community to have, versus what information we're going to be presenting.
Okay, are there any other concerns with council action items? If not, someone could make a motion to receive for information as presented.
So
Councillor
moved.
Penner?
Oh, sorry. So moved.
Okay, we have a motion to receive for information as presented. Is there any discussion to that motion? I don't see any, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We have nothing for closed session, I take it? Nothing there, good. So at 10:43, I will adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everyone.